Hello and welcome to the CM12 Aries Cup guide. So the Aries Cup takes place at the Satsuki Sho, which is a gem in the classic Triple Crown. The Satsuki Sho is a 2,000 meter medium course that is at the Nakayama race course. The greens for this course is going to be standard distance, firm conditions, sunny days, spring runner, Nakayama race course, and right-handed. So here is a visual representation of the track. As you can see, the final leg begins on a late race corner, but it is not the final corner. So when you're looking at acceleration skills, you want to find acceleration skills that start on a late race corner, such as angling and scheming. If you're looking at skills that start on a late race straight, such as straightaway spurt, as you can see, the straight that happens after late race is so far after the late race begins that acceleration skill will be worthless. Final corner skills such as unrestrained is also not going to be as effective as a late race corner skill. So when I'm talking about reliable inheritable accels, what I mean is that these are accels that will hit on the same spot of the track in every single race. So all three of these skills, which should be pretty familiar to you by now, have what I consider to be a perfect proc. This means that all of these skills proc exactly when the final leg starts, which is exactly when you want to be accelerating. So we have angling and scheming from Seiun Sky, which requires you to be in first place. We have Let's Pump Some Iron from Mejiro Ryan, which requires you to be in sixth place. And we have Moving Past and Beyond from Mejiro Double, which requires you to be in fifth or sixth place and also to not be rushed during the game. So all three of these skills being viable means that all fronts, lates, and ends at least have some kind of reliable acceleration if you are in the correct position of the lobby. So before we get any deeper, let's just talk about the Christmas Oguri of it all. So this is Christmas Oguri's first dominant CM. So when people were saying way back in the day, Christmas Oguri is super meta, she's a must pull, she is the most meta horse there at least is for a long time, this is kind of the beginning of when we will see that come to fruition. Christmas Oguri is extremely good on this track. She's going to be everywhere, so expect to see a lot of Christmas Oguri. Why is she so dominant on this track? So let's talk about her unique skills. So Festive Miracle requires 3 stamina recoveries to proc. So when she procs her 3rd stamina recovery in a race, she is going to immediately then proc Festive Miracle. Because this relies on recovery procs, certain recoveries can proc at precise times, which makes Festive Miracle proc perfectly on certain tracks, and this is one of those tracks. So Festive Miracle is a 0.25 velocity skill, which is slightly better than a white velocity skill. It is a 0.3 acceleration skill, which is a slightly better than a white acceleration skill, and it is a 0.035 recovery skill, which is slightly better than a white recovery skill. So you get all of these effects at the exact same time the instant you proc your 3rd recovery on this track. Now, 777s and Umamusume are both Festive Miracle triggers on this track, because 777s will proc at 777 meters remaining on the track, and Umamusume procs on the first corner after the 50% mark of the race. So this means that Christmas Oguri can take Umamusume as her 4th recovery and has insurance to proc unique, which means that she will be able to have a backup if she whiffs any of her skills, and that backup can still proc her unique. So this is different than taking, for example, another mid-race skill as your backup, because Umamusume being able to proc her unique with carryover means that she has a backup to failing her 777's proc. Christmas Oguri is an Uma that can fail her win con and then say, hang on, let me try again. But why is this so good? So Hydrate, Corner Recovery, and 777s are all position agnostic. This means that you cannot force Christmas Oguri out of position with team building in order to deny her win condition. She will always hit this as long as she hits the wit checks. So she hits her velocity plus her acceleration unique with carryover no matter what, as long as she doesn't whiff a recovery, which makes her very, very hard to counter. I personally released my anti-meta video where I talk a lot about position blocking and blocking meta Umas out of the positions they need to activate their win cons. You can't really do that with Christmas Oguri because she doesn't have any positional requirements for 3 of her 4 main recoveries, and she only needs to hit 3 in order to hit her win con. Christmas Oguri is also very easy to build. She does not require any kind of aptitude fixing to do a perfect Trackblazer run, which means that you can focus all of your pink sparks on getting turf and medium to S. She has a 15% speed growth, so her speed is very forgiving to build. All you really have to do is to use an Agnes Tachyon as a parent, so that she is guaranteed to get Uma squared, and then find corner recovery or preferred position hints during your career. Because she already has Hydrate and 777s in her kit, when you start her with a Tachyon parent, she already has 3 of the 4 skills that she absolutely needs in order to hit her win condition for this track. You can also give her extremely low stamina compared to other Umas, so you can min-max her stat line by not even caring at all about her stamina and just making sure that you hit your power, your wit, and your speed skills. So this makes her very, very easy to build. Christmas Oguri's build floor is extremely low. Now, if you do want to run her in other positions, you will need to find other recoveries. I do think that Pace Christmas Oguri is the strongest way to build her because Uma squared as a backup trigger for a carryover unique is extremely strong, and it makes her a lot more reliable. It makes her so much more consistent in terms of making sure that she's able to hit that unique. If she runs in other positions, she doesn't have that backup trigger. Like, she can still get 4 recoveries, but she's relying a lot harder on 777s to trigger that unique. Now, other positions will have access to other accelerations. So, for example, you could run a front Christmas Oguri and be able to use angling and scheming, which gives her even more acceleration. But personally, I think that her reliability with having her backup trigger being Uma squared is nothing to sneeze at, and I do think that it's going to make a Pace Oguri probably have a higher win rate, whereas Oguri in other positions might be able to have a slightly higher ceiling when she hits. So if I haven't hammered this in enough, the strength that Christmas Oguri has on this track has not been seen before on Global from any Uma in any CM. The fact that Christmas Oguri is position agnostic, so she has very little counterplay, and she also has a perfect carryover velocity and acceleration unique, means that she is just going to be very, very, very dominant, and it is going to be difficult to really do anything about it. Because this is so strong, I've seen a little bit in the community where there's been some backlash against people who want to play Christmas Oguri, or there's some friction or frustration in the community about people who don't want to play Christmas Oguri or people who don't have her versus people who are going to be playing her. But I really want to emphasize that you should play what you want to play. It is nobody's fault that Christmas Oguri is so strong, except for like side games, and taking advantage of that is not like a moral choice, right? Like, if you want to play the meta, it is a completely valid way to play, and I think that gets lost a little bit sometimes in the jokes or conversations about it, so I just want to make sure that it's really hammered in that whatever you want to play, whether that's meta, whether that's favorites, whether that's, something else, whether that's the path of least resistance, completely valid, and you shouldn't feel bad for playing a way that you want to play, especially if you pulled for this character. Please use her, right? She's really good, just use her. How do you counter Christmas Oguri? So that's the neat part. I've said a couple times, but because her recoveries are position agnostic, it is very difficult to really reliably be able to counter her. The most reliable ways that I have seen that you can counter her are, 1, to run your own Christmas Oguri, if you have one, and try to just have the better Christmas Oguri. So I've noticed a lot in my own room matches that usually the Christmas Oguri that wins in a Christmas Oguri versus Christmas Oguri duel is going to be the Christmas Oguri that is in front of the pace pack at the start of the late race, because of course she's going to hit her acceleration sooner, and that's really all that matters. So I would say, in order to counter Christmas Oguri, if you have one yourself, I would really, really emphasize to try to make your mid-race very strong. Even maybe try to make your early race pretty strong. If you are running like a groundwork Christmas Oguri, I think that's going to be really, really strong, whether you're running 2 fronts yourself or whether you're trying to play for a lucky pace angle. Either way, I think that's going to be really powerful. Stacking mid-race on Christmas Oguri, also very powerful. You have options like Killer Tunes, Professor of Curvature, all of the corners and straight skills, things like that. If you don't have Christmas Oguri, or if you don't want to use her, if you want to try to find other ways to counter her, or if you want to counter her while running your own Christmas Oguri, you can run Velocity Debuffs. So you can run Dominator Umas, and you can also add Hesitant Pace Chasers, or even other hesitant skills to your Umas to try to help them slow down other Umas. And finally, you can run a front composition. So fronts, I think, have the best chance of consistently being able to beat Oguri caps, especially if you're looking at Oguri caps that maybe are a little bit underinvested. So I do think that fronts are able to win. First, let's talk about velocity debuffs. So Dominator is going to be the one that everybody talks about. Only these 4 horses have access to Dominator, because Dominator is not available on a card, so if you want to run Dominator Umas, your choices are between these 4 Umas. Luckily, there are 2 free-to-play Umas on here in Agnostic and Grass Wonder, so you can run both of them if you would like. Dominator procs at 6th or below, but I do recommend that you build a hybrid Dominator because stamina buffs will not be very effective. I'll go into this a little bit more when I talk about actual late surges, but if you want to run a Dominator to hopefully try and debuff Christmas Oguri or other Umas that might be threatening you, these are your main options. If you want to run additional velocity debuffs, you are in luck because Hesitant Pace Chasers and Hesitant Frontrunners is on both Marvelous Sunday cards, and you will almost definitely be running at least one of them in your deck because they're both very good cards. If you want to take it a step further and get Hesitant Late Surgers, that is on that Knight's Nature card that you'll probably be running on a Late Surger anyway. I would say your priority in terms of Hesitant debuffs is going to be you want to focus on getting Hesitant Pace Chasers above all else, but you can also tack on Hesitant Frontrunners because there will be some people building some very strong fronts. I don't think Hesitant Ends is going to be worth it because I don't think the End Closers are going to be extremely threatening in the CM. If the skills are cheap enough, you can also buy 1 or 2 Hesitant skills on your aces. Now, Seiun Sky herself actually has Hesitant Pace Chasers innately in her kit, and she can get Hesitant Late Surgers during a career event. Now, Seiun Sky is going to have a lot of build requirements that she needs, and so it might be difficult to squeeze these skills in. I would really only recommend buying them on Seiun Sky herself if maybe you're in a fast learner run and you do have a lot of skill points to spend. While we're on the topic of Seiun Sky, I do believe that Seiun Sky has the best chance of any other Uma at actually consistently beating Christmas Oguri. And that's because innate angling and scheming is very strong. So innate angling and scheming is a 0.4 acceleration. Festive Miracle is only a 0.3, but Christmas Oguri does also get that velocity carryover alongside it. So with a Seiun Sky, you have to hit angling and scheming. So you have to be first at the end of mid-race on her, and then you also have to build a very strong lead so you can negate Christmas Oguri's carryover with the velocity part of Festive Miracle. The problem with this is how do you ensure that Seiun Sky is first for angling and scheming at the end of the mid-race when Summon Marzensky and Valentine Bourbon inherently have a stronger mid-race than she does. Seiun Sky does have Escape Artist in her kit, she does have Tail Held High in her kit, so she actually does have a very strong kit to push into this, but because she doesn't have a mid-race unique skill, it is going to be a little bit trickier for her to be able to be first at the end of mid-race, especially if you're competing against other people's fronts. So you really want to, if you're building a Seiun Sky, and you're building a Seiun Sky with the purpose of beating Christmas Oguri, you really want to build a very good Seiun Sky. With your own team comp, you can build intentionally so that your Seiun Sky does have the best mid-race of your other front Uma, or you can just use Sacrificial Trackblazer fronts. And I specify Trackblazer here because if you are running a Unity Silent Suzuka thinking that your Seiun Sky can't overtake her towards the end of the mid-race, that doesn't really work very well on the medium track because of the stat and skill disparity of Unity versus Trackblazer when you're not trying to put a lot of your eggs in a stamina basket, right? So one of the reasons that Silent Suzuka was working okay as a chariot in CM11 was because other fronts had to invest so much of their build into stamina, right? When they don't have to do that, Silent Suzuka is not going to be able to maintain, start having a lead. She's not going to be able to keep a lead because she's going to be competing against Umas with 1200 power and 1200 wit and so much more mid-race than her. There's no way she'll be able to keep a lead long enough to have that chariot effect on the kind of Seiun Sky that you need to build in order to beat a Christmas Oguri. So to that end, I would say you would want to actually build fronts in Trackblazer that can help Seiun Sky maintain the lead while also not stealing her angling and scheming proc. Triple front comps. So if you run 3 fronts and there is 1 more front in the lobby, as long as all of these fronts can stay ahead of Christmas Oguri on corner 3, you will block the Uma squared proc. This means that Christmas Oguri has to hit all 3 of her other recoveries in order to hit Festive Miracle with carryover. So you can try to position block her the only way that's possible, which is by blocking her out of 1 of her triggers to hit her unique. If she is relying on preferred position as her mid-race, if there are 2 additional fronts in the lobby, so you're pushing this Christmas Oguri to 6th place preferred position will not proc, and she will not be able to hit either of her recovery win cons, and she will just lose. This also blocks killer tunes, so if you build a triple front comp and you pray for 2 more fronts in every single lobby, you can counter Christmas Oguri just about every single time. This is a little bit sketchy because you're relying on other people in your lobby to bring fronts, and because Christmas Oguri and Double Dominator is so popular, I don't know how much you will actually be seeing this come to fruition, especially because Global doesn't really build very many fronts. So it's gonna be a little bit of a trade-off where you'll be able to counter her, but it's very lobby dependent. Now, double front is the alternative. 2 fronts is the minimum for fronts to do well in any lobby, so you really want to make sure that you provide both of those fronts because you know best on how to build your own fronts. You don't want to rely on your opponent's fronts. If you bring 1 front and your opponents bring a front that is not very good, your front is still not going to be pushed up far enough. The third Uma in your double front composition can either be a late, in which case you would pick a Dominator, or Christmas Oguri herself just for insurance. Now, like I've been mentioning, fronts do need a very high investment in order to reliably beat Christmas Oguri. They will need their early race acceleration, their groundwork, their taking the lead. They will need mid-race velocity, their Professor of Curvature, Killer Tunes, Operation Cacao, corners, straights. They'll need angling and scheming to get that acceleration, and they will need some late race velocity in order to keep that lead over Christmas Oguri, who is trying to close on them. Pace chasers are not in a great spot in the CM if you're not Christmas Oguri. Unfortunately, pace chasers don't really have access to reliable acceleration unless they get lucky pace, in which case they would take angling and scheming. Now, getting lucky pace is not the most strange thing in the world because a lot of players will be running Christmas Oguri and Double Dominator. But I do think that it's going to be tricky because fronts are also a valid way to build, and so you're not really going to hit as many frontless lobbies as you would in, like, CM6, for example. If you are not trying for an angling and scheming, you can try to get a No Stopping Me by running Yukino Bijin Wit for the gold No Stopping Me skill. And in that case, you would want to bring 2 fronts because one of your fronts will hit angling and scheming, and one of your fronts will not. And so if you can hit No Stopping Me off of the front that did not hit angling and scheming, you can have an acceleration that will match Christmas Oguri's, or even exceed it slightly. And hopefully you'll also hit head on, and you'll be able to win out the lobby that way. It's not really recommended to bring a pace chaser who's not Christmas Oguri if it's not your favorite pace chaser, and even if it is, I might recommend trying to squeeze them into a front or a late if their aptitudes will allow for it. But it is an option, and you can build them. So I think that late surges are actually really, really interesting in this CM. Basically, your late surges fall into 2 main categories, which is going to be a Dominator late surger and a non-Dominator late surger. Dominators can be further split into a hybrid Dominator and a full debuffer, and a non-Dominator can be split into Dober and Ryan versus everyone else. So the 6 Umas that you see on the screen, Grass Wonder, Tachyon, Rudolph, and Valentine Asian Flash, are all Umas that have Dominator. And Megiro Dober and Megiro Ryan are 2 late surges that have an innate 0.4 acceleration, so very strong acceleration. Now these 6 Umas are all fairly unique in the late surge category, and so if you're running 1 or 2 of them, you're going to have a little bit of a leg up over people who are not running these specific Umas as lates. When we talk about Dominators, I mentioned earlier that hybrid Dominators are going to be more effective than a full debuffer. This is because stamina debuffing is pointless, because Christmas Oguri is going to have at least 4 recoveries, probably 5 full recoveries, so there's not really enough effective debuff skills that you can buy. Like, if you're not buying stamina debuffs, then all you're really trying to buy is Dominator plus a couple of hesitant debuffs. So I do think that Dominator works better if it has a win con, right? So if you have an Uma that has Dominator and you give them hesitant pace chasers, maybe you also give them hesitant frontrunners, you still have a lot of SP and stats that you can allocate to try to give them a win con, such as giving them Let's Pump Some Iron or giving them On Your Left. In terms of hybrid Dominators, I do think that Grass is the best option because her growth rates are very forgiving. She has nice skill access because she does get On Your Left in her potentials. There's also the full ace option of getting a late surger. So Dober and Ryan both have the innate 0.4 acceleration in a perfect proc zone, so they are both going to be very, very strong. Everybody else will be inheriting both of their uniques. They will also probably inherit one another's uniques when you're building them, and they will be stacking other skills, such as On Your Left, No Stopping Me, or From the Brink, which again is on that new series symbolic card. Lates want to stack power, wit, mid-race, excels, and late race. The interesting thing about them is that you don't want to over-index on acceleration, or else you might not be hitting enough mid-race and enough velocity in order to catch up to those Christmas Oguris. So late is in a very interesting position where you are going to have people running full ace lates, you're going to have people running Dominator hybrids, and you're going to have people running full debuff lates. So even though I don't recommend stamina debuffers, we're still probably going to see quite a few like Nice Natures, for example. In these kinds of lobbies, your lates may be pushing up out of their win conditions. So your Dober might be pushing into 4th, your Ryan might be pushing into 5th. And that's going to be a problem, and it's a problem that I don't really know if there's a reliable way to solve. I don't think that you should be running lates with ends, for example, but it is going to be difficult to get them into the correct position when there's going to be such a high variance of late surgers. Additionally, I also think that late surgers are going to be the most popular position to run in this CM because lates haven't really been viable for a long time. So it's going to be tough, I think, for lates to have consistency, but I do think that lates have enough strong accelerations that they can win inconsistently, because they're so dependent on lobby composition. End closers I consider to be really just kind of discount lates in this CM. They don't have a whole lot on their own. They can try to take all of the late skills. They will still be taking Pump Some Iron, they'll still be taking Moving Past and Beyond, and they'll try to push past the debuffers using their superior mid-race to win their win con positions such as 6th and 5th place. End closers can try to run from the brink on the Serious Symbolic card that's coming out in a couple days, which is a skill that has a positional proc and it's medium only, but it's kind of like on your left, but it's not restricted to late surgers. So end closers are able to run that, end closers are able to run Daring Strike, and then end closers are able to run those 5th and 6th position accelerations, and just kind of hope that they can push past enough debuffers in the lobby to hit those excels. Again, straightaway spurt does not work, so please don't take straightaway spurt or encroaching shadow. Does not work on this track. So let's talk about team comps. So the xODDia team comp, the xOguri and Double Dominator comp, I do believe is going to be the strongest, most consistent comp, but it does put most of your eggs in one basket. Even though your Double Dominators will be hybrids, the chance of them actually winning is relatively low. So you're really reliant on your Christmas Oguri, and if your Christmas Oguri whiffs somehow, you will lose. Despite that, this is going to be very strong because Christmas Oguri herself is so strong, and if you're running a Double Dominator comp, especially if those Dominators have other hesitant debuffs on them, you're debuffing the entire lobby by such a significant amount that your Christmas Oguri will have very little competition to take first place. Again, if your Oguri whiffs some of her recoveries, you are going to lose. In a 3x mirror match where you are Christmas Oguri Double Dominator against Christmas Oguri Double Dominator against Christmas Oguri Double Dominator, the Lucky Pace Christmas Oguri is going to win as long as she doesn't whiff 777s. Even though Lucky Pace Christmas Oguri does not have access to Umamusume because Umamusume only hits from the 3rd and 4th position, she will still win as long as she hits her other 3 recoveries. Lucky Pace Christmas Oguri is very strong, which is one of the reasons why people want to run fronts to avoid that. In my room testing with Christmas Oguri and Double Dominator, the only time I ever lost was if I whiffed 2 recoveries, basically. If I was either pushed into a position where I couldn't use Umamusume and I whiffed another recovery, or I was pushed so far back that my Umamusume and my preferred positioning both didn't proc and I didn't get 2 recoveries. This is because my Christmas Oguri doesn't have corner recovery, she has preferred position, but if you are running a Christmas Oguri with corner recovery, hydrate, and 777s, I think you're just going to win a lot of rooms. Another team comp you can run is the Christmas Oguri plus Oshi Showcase. So this is where you showcase your Oshi alongside your Christmas Oguri. So you can run a front Christmas Oguri late comp, you can run a front Christmas Oguri end comp, you can run a Christmas Oguri pace comp, really just run any 2 Umas with Christmas Oguri. Since all positions do have access to accelerations, all Umas do technically have a win con, so you can just play your favorite, play into their win con, and watch your Christmas Oguri take the majority of their wins. You know, Christmas Oguri is going to wear all the gold medals, and you're going to be like popping bottles over your favorite who wins like bronze. There are alternatives to no Christmas Oguri players. So you can run triple front to try to block her win con. You can run a triple late, which is going to be a double or triple dominator comp. Triple late is going to be pretty interesting because you're really beholden to whether or not there are fronts in the lobby to help prevent Christmas Oguri from taking a lucky pace angle, but it is possible to stack all of your accelerations and still win the game. You can also run a double front and dominator comp, which I do think has one of the highest build ceilings of the compositions that you could run. Double fronts are going to be very effective, and if you add a dominator to them, I think that it is going to be a really strong comp. You just have to be able to invest very strongly into your double front comp. You can also just just run your favorite Uma with a double Dominator. Because it is a medium course, you're able to run double Dom in order to push your favorite Uma up a little bit more at the end of the race. This is the kind of gaming that is going to maybe not give you the highest win rate, but might make you personally the most satisfied. Or if you don't want to play Dominators, you can just run any 3 Umas. Like I mentioned, every position technically has access to accelerations, and so you are able to get win cons for any Uma in any position. You just have to be a little bit careful about what you're building and hope that you can build effectively enough to counter the meta. In closing, I really want to strongly urge you to play how you want to play. I do think that beating Christmas Oguri is possible, but I also think that doing so reliably requires a very high investment team. You should play what you want to play, and please keep in mind that choosing to play the meta is not bad. Because there's a long gap between now and the actual start of the CM, I think that this is also a very good opportunity to take time to build your account back up after Trailblazer starts. This is a fantastic time to try to build parents and team trial Umas, specifically parents, because the next CM is also going to be a medium CM. So the more time you invest now, if you spend the next 2.5 weeks just doing some parent farmings for mediums, then you're going to have parents that will last a very long time on your account that you'll be able to use in a lot of medium CMs. So I highly encourage you to do that, and I think that that will reward you in the long run. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave some in the comments section. And additionally, feel free to join my Discord community. My community has a lot of really great people who love answering questions. So if you do have a little bit more in-depth questions, please feel free to join that, and they would love to help you out. Thank you again so much, and I hope everyone has a great day. Best of luck in building for the CM. Bye-bye.